Okay, this review lesson is going to take us again a little bit more in depth in our exponential problems that we did a few weeks ago. So we did kind of the basics last week, and I'm going to go back and review those. So once again, if you multiply like bases, you add exponents. If you divide like bases, you subtract exponents. And if you raise a power to a power, you multiply. So those are the basics that we went over again last week. So this week's review lesson is going to be a little bit more involved. So let's start off with doing one that looks like this. Okay, we are multiplying here. You have coefficients. You have coefficients 5 and 3. So you will multiply those. 5 times 3 is 15. Now you have x squared times x. Remember, when you multiply like bases, you add exponents. But let me remind you, this is not a 0 here. It is an assumed 1. So that becomes x to the third. And then you've got y times y to the third. Again, that's not y to the 0. There's an assumed 1. And when you multiply like bases, you add exponents. Okay, so let me give you one to work. Pause the video. Okay, pause the video and work that one for me. That's 3a squared b cubed times 9ab squared. Okay, so if you're ready to see the answer, 3 times 9 is 27. A squared times a, remember that's a 1 right there. When you multiply like bases, you add exponents, so that's a cubed. B cubed times b squared, b to the 5th. Now, the next one is one that kind of seemed to mess us up a little bit when we did it the first time. Okay, so we have 3x squared y cubed, and that's all in parentheses, and that is all squared. So I'm going to show you the two methods that we discussed when we did this in class. So you've got this whole base, and it is squared. So what you could do is say 3x squared y cubed and multiply it by itself because it is squared. So then you would do like you did in the last problem. 3 times 3 is 9. X squared times x squared, 2 plus 2 is 4. Y cubed times y cubed, 3 plus 3 is 6. So there's one method. Now the other method is when you raise a power to a power, you multiply. There's an assumed 1 right here by that 3. 3 to the first power squared is 3 squared. X to the second squared is x to the fourth. Y cubed squared is y to the 6th. So all we have to do is clean this up and do 3 squared, which is 9. And I have the same answer as I did using the other method. Okay, so jot down this problem. Okay, so do 4a squared b in parentheses, and all of that is cubed. So pause the video, write this down, and then you can play it when you want to see the answer. Okay. Okay, so you have multiple methods. So if this is not too large, and if it's too large, you may want to revert to the method number 2. But if this is not too large, you can take the base and write it out as many times as the exponent tells you. And multiply. 4 times 4 is 16 times another 4 is 64. A squared times A squared times A squared. When you multiply like bases, you add exponents. B times B times B. Don't forget, this is an assumed 1. Okay, so 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. Now, if you want to use method number 2, you may want to go ahead and put a 1 right here and a 1 right there. And then you go back to when you raise a power to a power, you multiply. Raise a power to a power, you multiply. Raise a power to a power, you multiply. Then the only thing you have to work out is 4 cubed, which is 64. Okay, so let's do one that's really a great big. Okay, and you may not want to work that out 5 times. Once again, put your power of 1 right there. When you raise a power to a power, you multiply. When you raise a power to a power, you multiply. When you raise a power to a power, you multiply. And then all you have to work out is 2 to the 5th power. Four times 4 is 16 times 2. So that would be 32 x to the 20th, y to the 15th. Okay, now a couple of last little quick ones. These should not be difficult. If I have x to the 3rd squared times x to the 5th. Don't forget, in order of operation, you do the exponent first. X to the 3rd to the 6th, when you raise a power to a power, you multiply. And then when you multiply like bases, you add exponents. Okay, let's try this one. Okay, in order of operation, please excuse my dear, you would multiply first. So when you multiply like bases, you add exponents. And then when you divide like bases, you subtract exponents. Okay, so that's your review lesson for the more involved exponential problems. You are now ready to work the worksheet, and don't forget, quiz next Wednesday.